What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Thanksgiving NFL show. AP, sorry we were late, only a minute or two, but to be fair, we were having a fun conversation about if you were having Thanksgiving dinner with your, favorite DFS tout, right? Imagine Thanksgiving dinner with JSU and his warm water. Imagine Thanksgiving with Big T and the warm apple pie and all the giblets. So, DC, I'll go to you first. Are there any DFS players that you'd want to have Thanksgiving with, maybe with Jonathan Bales and watching him do push-ups all day long?
No, that sounds rough. I don't need to watch Bales do 3-quarter push-ups and then lose a bunch of money. So no, I'll pass on that on Thanksgiving. But yes, I mean, plenty of DFS folks and brethren and friends that I'd be happy to share a meal with, including both of you two fine gentlemen, all the good folks here at RPS, everybody up watching early this show. Always a fun day, I think, on Thanksgiving. Reminds me a little bit of those old, before the showdown days for you youngsters out there. We used to have primetime slates where you could kind of swap and see how you're doing in between, Sunday night and Monday night football. We don't get many slates like this where you can kind of digest where you're at after each individual game. We do have a little bit of time between each game, and if you're like me, if you're home and just grinding this NFL slate all day, it does give you a little bit of an edge, I think, over the field as opposed to just all the games locking at once. So excited for these 3 games, kind of each one for a little bit of different reasons. I'll be watching all 3, playing showdowns, playing the slates, and hopefully, getting to the top today along with you two and everybody else watching this show, RPS members, all that good stuff. So happy to be here, bright and early here in Denver, Colorado, and hoping to get to the winner's circle today.
All right, we got tons of Thanksgiving comments. We got IPT who gave away some tickets in the chat. So happy to have you here. And Jacob, yes. Show is going on time when JSU isn't involved. Interesting. I'm actually curious. I would love to know what goes on before the show. I might actually one day before the show starts, I'm going to jump in just to listen and be like, what are you guys doing for 10 minutes? So I'm curious as well, Jacob. It's a very odd sign. But yeah, we're hanging out. We're doing the Thanksgiving show. It's a good time. Of course, Kevin is nominating Kevin Roth as an option for the DFS Thanksgiving.
I don't know if I'd be invited to his Thanksgiving, but thankfully now I can at least see his tweets. But thanks, Elon. I can see the blocked tweets these days.
Yes, you can. Let's go to the man, the myth, the legend, the man who's been up since 4 a.m., has probably done 3 workouts and he's going to keep hammering away. Snyder, you and your Baltimore Ravens got the best of the Chargers. And I have to ask, were you on the Ravens or were you on the Chargers Monday night?
I wasn't on anyone in that game. I was worried with the Ravens going on the road to the Chargers there. It was a tricky game for sure, but the biggest call in that game actually, I think, was John Harbaugh going for it on 4th and 1 on his own 16. That shifted the whole game. The momentum swung. They took the lead and never looked back. So, yeah, excited to dive into this slate, though. 3 games, all the showdowns. Like DC was saying, there's a huge edge if you're going to sit near a computer, rerun the sims. Saber Sim's going to be updating those sims as the data comes available for the first 3 games. So it's always great to get in there and run those contest sims after every game or before each game starts. Looking forward to this. So I think we got some interesting options here. There's going to be some ownership congested in a few spots, but looking forward to it.
Snyder, that 4th down going for it, was it like the own 15, own 20, which you obviously don't see very often, but it reminded me of, I've had this take forever, but if you want to know what the analytics say, just ask yourself, what does the opposing team not want us to do? And do that, right? And in that example, the Chargers did not want the Ravens to go for it, right, on 4th and 1 there. They wanted the ball back. And so you do the opposite of what the other team wants you to do, which is go pick up that 4th down, and then that was pretty much done and dusted with that. So anyway, a little bit of an aside there.
Yeah. And by the way, Snyder, what a professional! Did you hear that Saber Sim ad read he threw in there, DC? I mean, that was pretty damn good.
You're right. It's good advice. I like it.
It's good advice, and it was a good little read, for our partners over at Saber Sim. And yes, DC, I started playing Madden again, and last night I played in a lot of tough games, and I balled up for it and went for 2 when it was 7-7. It was a grind.
Listen. If you're punting in Madden, you got to live a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was 7-6, and it was late in the game. Not a lot of offense was scored. It was a grinded out game, and I went for 2. I said we're winning this game, 8-7. There was like no time left, and got the W. So
sounds like an exciting night there. 8-7 Madden victory in the.
I played like so much Madden last night, and let me tell you, every game was like a 3-point game. It was pretty crazy. So
I want to play you in Madden. I'll take you out, man.
Oh, I'd whoop you in Madden. I don't know if you're making audibles of the line and stuff, but I'm like.
I got hot routes. I got all kinds of.
Oh, I got all the hot routes. All right, we got to get that going at some point. But all right, let's get going into the slate. And I mean, it's a really, really interesting slate. Honestly, we've had some Thanksgiving slates that are pretty lame. That like you're just like, okay, well, I'm playing this spend up, and this guy's hurt, and this and that. I think this slate got a lot of different avenues you can go than past Thanksgiving slates. For one, Rico Dowdle's definitely going to be chalk. And I'm just giving a quick overview. He'll be chalk. People want to spend up for these running backs. You got 3 spend ups that you can easily get to. You got St. Brown, Lamb, Neighbors, Hill, all above 6.9K. Sometimes it's just like, oh, you have Justin Jefferson and that's it as a spend up, right? Like you have a lot of different avenues you can go. And then tight end is really interesting. Obviously, people are going to be all over Jonnu Smith, which I'm just like, okay, like, is Sam Laporta finally going to show up here? Like, there's so many different ways you can go with this slate. And Caleb Williams is going to be chalk, which Big T, our guy with the flow chart, it's one of the worst matchups, he says. So, a lot of different ways you can go with this slate. Let's dive in, though, with Bears and Lions. And, I'm not saying set a rule to be like, hey, you have to have Lions on every team. I'm sure Saberson will take care of that. You'll get exposure to Lions, but it's hard not to get exposure to the Lions, in my opinion. I think the guys that mainly people want to go to is probably Jahmyr Gibbs, St. Brown, or Laporta. I think the guys that get lost in the shuffle on the Lions side are Montgomery and Jameson Williams a little bit, because obviously the injury with David Montgomery, that can impact his ownership a ton. Does he still have the Q tag? Yes, he still has the Q tag, which I think there's definitely people talking to their uncle that are like, their mom's making the dinner right now and they're hand building lineups. They're not going to click on the Q tag as easily. It's just a little tougher to do. I think Jameson Williams is a great leverage play off some of these guys. I think he's going to get lost in the shuffle. And then the Bears, the Caleb Williams, the Caleb Williams chalk just is so odd to me. I mean, I don't feel like it's that hard to get up to these other quarterbacks. Maybe it's the weather with Love and Tua's game that's holding it down a little bit. And then, of course, you can easily stack Caleb Williams up with any Bears receiver, right? DJ Moore, 5.6K. Keenan Allen, 5.1. Rome Odunze, 5K. I assume Keenan Allen will be the highest on 1. And then Cole Kmet, he's a pretty interesting option, too, that I think will definitely be lower owned. And you'll get him at 3.6K. And he's shown some spike weeks, and we're playing for the spike week, right? I mean, he's definitely shown he has the ability to do it. 2 games above 20 DK points. I think this is the game, or one of the games that people are looking at, probably the game that's going to get the most ownership on the slate. Snyder, we'll kick it off with you first. What are your thoughts on how you're going to handle this game?
Yeah, for sure. With this game, we got Detroit with the highest implied team total on the slate at 28. They've scored 24 points or more the last 8 games, so they're definitely going to score some points here. I don't think I'm going to get to Goff, though. I'd rather play Jordan Love in that last game if I'm spending up at QB. But like everyone in cash and stuff is going to be playing Caleb Williams at 5.3. He's going to see quite a bit of ownership here. And both the running backs for Detroit, Gibbs at 7,500 and Montgomery at 6,500. Montgomery is a little nicked up, but Campbell said he didn't think he would be able to hold him out of this game even if he wanted to. So, Montgomery's going to be there. He's going to be getting some goal line carries. I think there's paths to both of these running backs for the Lions being on the optimal together, even in a short slate like this. If the Lions do roll here, there's a lot of stuff backing big favorites of 10-plus points. I know it's under 10 now, but 10-plus points on Thanksgiving are undefeated. They haven't lost, so I think the Lions are going to come out strong here. Bears are I still think they're a little fraudulent going against a tough team like this. So I like all the Lions pieces here. Gibbs, I've been playing quite a bit. He'll be the main guy I go to. The 3 main Lions I like are Gibbs, JMO, and then Laporta. Laporta's played 67 snaps last week. There was some coach talk about him finally getting more incorporated in the offense. Kind of ran bad last week. He had 6 targets, but only caught 3 for 18 yards last week. And he gets a really good matchup here against the Browns, who have yielded some big games to tight ends over the last few weeks. Last week, Hawkinson went for 23 points on them. And they've allowed double-digit fantasy points to the tight end position in 5 of their last 6 games as well. So I think Laporta is my favorite tight end on the slate. I think we look for him to finally get going there. Against the Texans and Titans, he had over 15 points in both of those games. I think we see something similar to that, and should be quite a bit, at least relatively lower owned than like Jonnu Smith in that last game. So Sam Laporta is probably my favorite Lions play on the slate. And then St. Brown's kind of nicked up, but he'll be out there for sure. And J-Mo just kind of makes a lot of things work for me. We see the big play threat with him. He's got to catch over 25 yards in most of the games this year. 7 targets last week. Didn't really do too much with them. We saw that big play threat, though, against Jacksonville, but he had 124 yards and a touchdown in that game. So I like J-Mo in the Dome at home. I think he is my second favorite option. And then Gibbs and Montgomery. I'm definitely going to have some of both of those guys. I'll be underweight on Swift and Roschon, and I think I'm going to be a little under on Caleb in tournaments, but we've seen Keenan Allen kind of take off with a new play caller there, 25% target share in the last 2 games with him. He's going to be the popular cash option there as well. Romo Dunze is still getting the targets, just hasn't really lived up to him. He's double-digit targets in the last 2 games, only 39 yards on those 10 targets last week, and then the week before, 65 yards on those 10 targets. So I think Roma Dunze is my favorite bear to go to.
Yep, I like the Dunze call, Snyder. We got some good comments. David Montgomery revenge game. Don't forget it. David Montgomery, a little revenge if you like that. And then Jake said, Cooper Rush over Caleb Williams. We'll get to that. I actually like that idea. And then, of course, the onslaughts, DC. Onslaughting is a good way to go in DFS sometimes. Like, I like to talk about how maybe you just fade one game entirely. Maybe you just fade the late game. Maybe you fade the early game. If you don't try to get a piece of every single game, that is one way that you are already probably instantly unique in some sort of way, because most people try to get a piece of every single game. I'm not saying you can't have every game on the slate, but you get what I'm saying with that. So overall, how are you going to attack this game? Because it's clearly going to be one that's going to have a lot of ownership, and there's not plays we're just going to completely ignore.
Yeah, I think the Bears have a reputation on defense that maybe isn't really earned, at least if you look at the last 5 games. I mean, they've given up an average of 400 yards per game over their last 5, with 3 home games, and honestly not really a juggernaut offenses that they've faced. I mean, Minnesota, Green Bay, the Patriots, Arizona, and the Commanders. It's not, a list of the best offenses in the league by any means, and they're giving it up. I mean, they gave up 452 yards to the Vikings last game at home. Now they go on the road to a short week. And I know a short week, generally we favor the defenses. I don't think so in this game. I mean, the Lions, Dan Campbell and the Lions, I mean, he has this team ready to play every week, kind of regardless of opponent. They're going to be damn ready on Thanksgiving morning to go out there and put on a show. And we've seen it several times from the Lions this year and over the last couple of years. When they're really clicking, it's like every play is like 5+ yards, right? Whether that's on the ground, it's completions every single time Goff drops back to pass. And this feels like a game where the Lions might just march up and down the field. And we saw it 2 weeks ago, they will keep their foot on the gas pedal. And you can be damn sure they'll do it if they get a chance to do it on Thanksgiving, right? They're going to put up 40+ points if they're able to do so, regardless of what Chicago does on the other side. I mean, what was the score of the Jacksonville game? 52-6 at home. They would love to do something like that again. I'm not saying that's the most likely outcome, but I don't think there's any other team that could realistically put up really even 40+ points on the slate other than the Lions. Obviously, the hard thing with the Lions, it's hard to choose who it's going to be, right? They've got the 2 running backs who are expensive. Their receivers, St. Brown, Jameson Williams are relatively expensive as well. St. Brown, of course. Laporta has finally come down in price, deservedly so. He's had, after last year's monster season, a really disappointing second year for Laporta so far. But we know the talent's there. So I like him quite a bit at 4,100. The way to flip the script is, I think you like to say that term, Mangone. Everybody's trying to play the Detroit running backs today, right? And not that I don't like Gibbs and Montgomery. I think they're going to have good games. But the way to flip the script is to play Goff and the pass catchers here. And listen, it could easily be Gibbs and Montgomery, but it could easily be Goff as well, I think. They can score from anywhere on the field. And it looks like Goff is going to be pretty low. And I know he's a little bit more expensive at 6,500. I know he has down games. But I think it's kind of hard to predict where it's going to go from Detroit. If you think their offense is going to go off, I personally think they're going to move the ball all game here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Goff throws for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns and it goes to the wide receivers and Sam Laporta instead. So I'll be over the field on Goff and the Detroit pass catchers. I think the Lions are going to have a big, big day on offense here. I'm not scared of that Bears defense really at all. Especially in Detroit, Thanksgiving. I just think this, and the coaching mismatch here. I know, Chicago got a little sharper firing their offensive coordinator. I do think that's a good thing for the Bears offense. But the Chicago team, I think, is still poorly coached overall. And I think Detroit is clearly the best team in the entire league. I'm guessing couldn't be more motivated for a game than they are right now on Thanksgiving at home. So I'm getting as many Lions as I can into my lineups. On the other side, I'm off of the Detroit running backs. We've seen since the coordinator switch a more even split between DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. I think Chicago's going to be behind in this game. I think it's a good slate to get off of, frankly, both of those guys. And I think they're going to try to rely on Caleb Williams, who has been handed a little bit more of the keys to the offense since the offensive coordinator switch. We've seen a bunch of screen passes, mostly to DJ Moore. They've led the league in the last 2 weeks by a long shot to wide receiver screens, getting the ball out quickly. I think that's good for Caleb. I like the the Chicago pass catchers more than I like Caleb himself. I don't think Caleb's going to be efficient in this game, but I think they're going to be behind, and I think there's going to have to be a lot of dropbacks, a lot of pass attempts, a lot of PPR goodness, right, for Moore, Allen, and Odunze. I like all 3 of these guys. I could see them getting there without Caleb on a bunch of shorter passes that we've seen, maybe some garbage time stuff, or maybe they don't score touchdowns, but they're racking up the PPR receptions. And then Cole Kmet as well, kind of reinstalled as the full-time tight end under the new coordinator, has played, I think, between 80 and 90% of snaps each of the last 2 games. He's a good option at 3,600. So I like the Lions offense and Goff overall. And then I like bringing it back with 1 or 2 run backs. Honestly, I think it's really close between Moore, Allen, and Odunze. I get it. Allen probably the safer option. Odunze is more the downfield touchdown guy. And then DJ Moore does a little bit of everything for this team. So I'll mix those guys in. But I'm going to be heavy on the Lions. And I think you could potentially get off to a pretty hot start on this slate by overstacking this game. Maybe to the Lions onslaught, bring it back with a couple Bears pass catchers, and you might have a lot of flame emojis in your lineup when this game is all said and done and try to hold on for the last 2 games. It's you mentioned we saw it in the chat, the onslaught call. We've seen it work on full slates. It's harder to do it on a full slate. Obviously, there's more players that can go off and run you down. On a 3-game slate with relatively modest totals, frankly, you can easily do it, right? There easily could be 1 game that goes off and kind of get 2 just average games or duds offensively otherwise, and you could hold the lead all Thanksgiving with this game with a full stack. So I'll have some teams like that for sure. I think this first one's going to be full of fantasy goodness, frankly.
Yeah, it's not one you just want to avoid, right? Like if you had to pick a game to not avoid, it's probably this one. You do want to get exposure to it. definitely different ways you can go about it. And it's in a dome, right? It's a 47.5 total. That other 47.5 total that's later on, the Green Bay game, that's outdoors. It's going to be really cold. We know we'll obviously get to the game, but the point I'm getting at is this game is clearly the game for a reason. And DC, I agree with you. The one thing that I think that's a really great point is, like, if you decided to just not play the running game, right, and just only play the pass catchers with Goff, like Goff and the pass catchers, that right there is going to be a way that you flip the build. You can even throw DeAndre Swift in there for a leverage, right? I think Cole Kmet is really interesting leverage. There's a lot of ways you can go about it. And another thing, too, to call out when building your teams, I think today is a pretty clear 3 running back day. I think most people, when they build their lineups, they will be playing 3 running backs. That is one reason why people are playing Caleb Williams today. The value that he provides, right, along with the Rico Dowdle chalk, the Jonnu Smith chalk, now I have the ability to spend up for a lot of spots. If in my flex spot, I decide to just play a bunch of receivers, let's say I decide to play Goff, Jamison Williams, St. Brown, and 1 Bears pass catcher. And then my 4th receiving option in the flex is from one of the 2 games. That's certainly possible and a very unique build right then and there, because a lot of people, like I said, are playing 3 running backs. So, I mean, DC, do you kind of agree, like, looking for those type of unique builds is a smart way to go about it? Because that's what I'm going to be doing when I kind of scroll through Saber later.
I certainly agree. It's always smart to try to look for the unique build, but I actually like the wide receivers overall today better than the running backs myself. So, and that wasn't even considering what other people are going to do. I just think, just look at the Bears. I like Moore, Allen, Odunze, Kmet way better than Swift and Roschon Johnson. I think it's close with the Lions. You go over to Dallas. Give me CeeDee Lamb over Rico Dowdle. Give me Neighbors over the Giants running back. So I'm actually pretty high on the wide receivers. Even Green Bay, they're missing Romeo Doubs, so it does allow opportunities for their other wide receivers. So I'm actually wide receiver heavy today, which I hope you're right, and I hope that's kind of a little bit more unique way to build.
Yeah, I think I'm right. So I think most people's builds are Dowdle with 2 of Jacobs, Gibbs, a chain. I think that's the core concept, I would say. And then of course, Tracy and Swift at running back, they're like the leverage, lower owned running back plays. And I don't think I'm forgetting anyone else. I guess you can consider Singletary, Raheem Mostert, but they're not. Those are guys that just aren't really projecting well at all. But yes, I think a lot of people are going to push the 3 running back setups, and not saying that won't win. I'm just saying on these slates, I like to kind of dig through. And that one thing I did last week, I dug through SaberSim and, deleted some teams that I just thought were like the wrong type of teams. And I'm definitely going to do that today once we get off of the show, just to kind of find those uniquer builds and uniquer paths that are still playing good plays. I don't want to ignore them all, but I want to find a unique setup. So, all right, next game up, Cowboys and Giants. And I do want to talk about this game. Now, it is a way lower total at 37.5. I will say, when the Giants and Cowboys get together, it's felt like in the past the game shootout. I don't know if I don't have the data on it, but it has felt that way for sure in the past. Now, it's Drew Lock playing Cooper Rush, so I don't want to just over-evaluate anything. But I think this Cowboys offense is worth taking shots on. The reason why is they don't really have a running game. Because they don't have a running game, they're passing a lot more, and that's going to help a lot for the ceiling. Cooper Rush at 4.8K, I actually think is a really interesting option to pair up with a CeeDee Lamb and like a Luke Schoonmaker. I think it's a great start to a team. You can throw in like a Tyron Tracy as a leverage play off of Rico Dowdle. And right there, that like 4-player setup is just clear leverage on Rico Dowdle and really, really intriguing build. Maybe Sylvester's right. Maybe Zeke Elliott finds his way in the box today. I doubt it, but if you are playing Zeke,
Zeke going to be doing the shoveling and turkey thing today.
Yeah, he might. He'll be doing it in the what's it called? The Christmas thing. But yeah, the little whatever it's called.
Salvation Army kettle. He'll jump in.
Yeah, the Salvation Army. There you go, Snyder. But anyways, it's clearly a game we have to like look into and like consider. You could also just straight up fade it. I still think people are getting exposure to the game. Of course, there's Drew Lock on the opposite side. You could play him and pair him with Malik Neighbors, who he was sick and tired of Brian Daboll and very frustrated, it seems like, with what's going on in New York. Maybe they feature, maybe it's a little bit of a squeaky wheel, unsure. But I like the Cowboys side more and a little bit more of the passing game. I'm going to say Rico Dowdle will probably be like 50 to 60% owned, I think, on this slate. And for me, I'm going to try to get under on that. I'll still have some. I think he's a decent source of value, but I'm not totally buying that the Cowboys running game is completely back. And I definitely want to invest a little bit more in that passing attack. Snyder, how about you?
Yeah, this game kind of has me kind of confused a little bit. We've got a total in this game 10 points lower than the other two games, and the spread in this game was 4.5 a couple days ago, and it's gotten drove down to it was 3 yesterday. It's back up to 3.5 today. So I think the Giants are definitely going to be in this game. You got 80% plus of the tickets are on the Cowboys, but the number got drove all the way down to the key number of 3. So somebody is pushing a lot of action on the Giants side. So I think the Giants are actually going to be in this game. I think it's going to be much closer than people think. The Cowboys generally don't play well at all on Thanksgiving. I mean, if you just fade the Cowboys over the last 10 years, I think you're like 9-1 or something like that. They did win last year against Washington, but it's been a really bad stretch before then. And then you look at probably the most highest owned guy on the slate could reach potentially like 60% or something. Enrico Dowdle there at 5.5K. This is going to be my big stand, I think, of the whole week. I mean, I'm going to play him in cash and stuff, so I'll have exposure there, but I'm going to be considerably underweight in tournaments. So Rico Dowdle over the last 8 games has 8 rushing attempts inside the red zone. I just don't think they're looking to get the ball in his hands when they're on the goal line in the red zone. That's more like Zeke and some of those bigger guys. They're looking to get more incorporated there. So I think there's a lot more paths to a Rico bust than him smashing at such high ownership. So that'll be my bigger stand there. I like the call that Mangone had on the tweet yesterday. He had Tyrone Tracy in his who they are playing and who you should play tweet there. Tracy ran pretty bad last week. He kind of got sat down because he fumbled, and he could fumble again today and get sat down. But I think the upside for him is much higher. You look at his game log even in his production that he's put out this year. He's got 3 games higher than Rico Dowdle, total points scored on the year. So I'm high on Tracy over Rico. $300 more for Tracy at way much lower ownership. So Tracy over Rico will be one of my bigger stands on the day from the position standpoint there. And then I am going to be playing some Drew Lock at 4,500. You can just literally jam everyone in. I will play him with Malik Neighbors definitely if I play Drew Lock. I think Malik Neighbors is the stud that gets overlooked on this slate. He's still seen, the last 4 or 5 games, he's still seeing the targets. They're pushing the ball in this direction. Double-digit targets over the last 5 games, averaging double-digit targets. So I think Malik Neighbors is the guy that could break this slate wide open. He's definitely got the talent. CeeDee Lamb is definitely the cash play I think a lot of people are going to go to. Cooper Rush is going to be force-feeding him the ball like last week. He had 12 targets last week, caught 10 of them for 67. We just really haven't seen that CeeDee Lamb eruption game this year, nothing comparable to what Jamar Chase and some of those guys have done this year. So I think I'm going to be a little under on CD in tournaments. Definitely play him in cash and stuff. I like Malik Neighbors a lot in this game. And then from the defensive side, I don't hate the Giants at 2,800. I think everybody's going to be clicking Dallas defense. Definitely the chalk play there. I think they're fine for sure. This is a low total. I think both defenses are fine in this matchup. We could see a slog. Both of these quarterbacks are definitely turnover prone. Drew Lock is definitely helpful for the Giants, so he's not just going to be a statue there and just get sacked 8 or 9 times like DeVito would. He's a little more mobile. He's going to push the ball downfield, which is good for Neighbors. You got, I think, if you're playing that $5 Millie Maker, I think Jalen Hyatt is a really off the wall play. You could go there. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes 1 for 65 and a touchdown, and that could be the thing you need from that such a large field that $5 Millie Maker is 600,000 people in there. So I think he's a guy that could turn some heads in that type of contest. Turpin's another $5 Millie Maker type play. The pricing on Jalen Tolbert seems really low at 3,800. I think he's got the upside to he had that one game where he put up 20 points. That's on the table here. But I'm definitely going to be kind of underweight on this game as the other two. But, I mean, if you full on jam this game and it nukes, I mean, you're definitely going to be very unique, aside from the Rico Dowdle side. But I think Tracy over Dowdle will be my big stand on the slate today.
Yeah, I like that. And, the Jalen Hyatt thing's not crazy, Snyder. I don't know if he's been on practice team with Locke or on that second team, but
probably
that seems to check out. And we do see that sometimes, the backup connection. It's definitely not. It's a thing, right? It's not nothing to think about, and especially on these 3-game slates. We joke it's a lotto, right? But there is definitely some randomness a bit to it. So yeah. I think you got to consider a little bit. And I'm playing a bunch of teams. There's a $5 today, too. So some people might be firing a little bit more teams than normal. So I'll take some shots on it. And hey, there's Showdown also. You can do it in Showdown as well. There'll be tons of stuff. And we'll have content over at Run Pure Sports for you guys. So if you do sign up, you can check it all out. We're going to have all the content. It'll be updated throughout the day. So be sure to check it out in between having some turkey. DC. You were shaking your head a bunch during that game. I saw for the Malik Neighbors thing. It sounds like you are high on the receivers today, which seems like a really good tournament approach. Who are some of the guys you're looking at in this game?
Yeah, it's pretty rare to get a team down to their third-string quarterback, which I guess the Giants technically are here with Drew Lock. They went with Tommy DeVito last week over Drew Lock, which I guess is a little bit concerning for their evaluation of Locke, but I don't really trust this Giants team to go, to know what's going on anyway. We've seen Drew Lock play, saw him over the years, and I mean he's kind of a gamer, a playmaker. We know it. He's going to make plenty of mistakes. He's not a perfect quarterback. I don't really think he's a starter in the NFL, but definitely a very viable backup. And we see all the time when these backups get their first chance, right? Their first chance in the game before maybe defenses can kind of adjust to what they're going to do in the new offense. They oftentimes come out and play well and then, kind of fall in their face in week 2 or 3 or 4 as a backup. And I think we could see a good game from Drew Lock here, at least a good fantasy game. We know the Cowboys defense is nothing special. We also know, the Cowboys, see some people say, this is the Cowboys and the Giants Super Bowl. I think the Cowboys just won their Super Bowl last week. They went into Washington and beat the Commanders, the up-and-coming Commanders team, right? But in an overtime game, the defense played 70 snaps in that game. Now they got to come back on the short week. And I think last week was the Cowboys Super Bowl. I think this is the Giants Super Bowl. And I think they got their best chance out there with, in my opinion, the best quarterback on their roster in Drew Lock. I definitely think he's better than DeVito. Frankly, I think he's better than Danny Dimes, at least the way Danny Dimes played this year as well. I think this team could be revitalized by Drew Lock, who, listen, I don't think he's going to be scared to go out there and play on Thanksgiving. I think, frankly, he probably thought he should have started last week, and I think he's going to be ready to go and hoping to put up a performance, maybe turn some heads, right? He's got a lot to play for, Drew Lock. He's trying to stay in the league, trying to be a backup in the league, whatever it is. So I like Drew Lock quite a bit here at 4,500. I definitely like him more than Cooper Rush. I think he's got more upside. And he's got some good guys to pair him with. Malik Neighbors, Snyder, you're the college football guy. He's what is he, a top 10 talent right now at the wide receiver position in the league? I think so. Hasn't really got to show it this year. Remember, he came out of the gate super hot, but Daniel Jones just has the worst accuracy and defensive reading ability of any starting quarterback in the league. I'm not sure Locke can be much worse for Neighbors than he's seen so far. I think we see a big show from Malik Neighbors today. I love the Locke to Neighbors connection. Frankly, if Neighbors gets there, Locke probably gets there at 4,500 too, right? I think usually it's the quarterback carries the wide receiver. I think this could be a situation where the wide receiver maybe carries the quarterback to value. So I like that combination a lot. I'll be over the field on both Neighbors and Drew Lock. I don't mind throwing Jalen Hyatt in there. Played 42% of snaps last week. It looks like they're going to maybe give him a little bit of run. instead of Darius Slayton, who they, a fine player, but they know what they have there. Hyatt, I think they kind of want to see what he can do. And he probably, frankly, has been catching passes in practice all year from Drew Lock as kind of the second string team there. So I don't mind that as a as a dart throw. I think you can throw in a Theo Johnson. We didn't mention him. He's had 6 targets I think in a bunch of the last few games. So I think there are ways to play this game from the Giants side. It is my preferred side. Of course, from Dallas, we're going to see a lot of ownership on Rico Dowdle, which I do get, but he is really, really unexplosive. I think his ceiling is pretty modest. I know you don't really need a huge ceiling, maybe at 5,500, but he makes me a little bit nervous. And then I do think CeeDee Lamb, 12 targets in each of the last 2 games with Cooper Rush. A lot of times these backup quarterbacks, like we've seen with Rush, they're dialed in on their number 1 wide receiver. They want to feed him the ball. I think we're going to see that with CeeDee Lamb. I expect him to get 7-8 plus catches in this game. I think he's a strong play as well. I like, that kind of narrow mini stack there. Lock, Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb. I could see doing some damage on this slate.
Yeah. Snyder, college football guy. You can get his cores over at Run Pure Sports. Mango, not a college football guy. He'll be on the college football show, though, tomorrow at 2 p.m. So thanks for that.
I got one
good
more
advertising.
thing,
I'm not a college football guy, but I'll be on the show anyway.
One more thing, I think there's a lot of paths to all these quarterbacks scoring less than 20 DK points on this slate, like we've seen a few times this year. If Drew Lock puts up like 14, 15, I think there's a lot of paths to him finding the optimal.
Yep.
Yeah,
not on a big slate, but on a 3-game slate, for sure. Could happen.
I agree on the Drew Lock stuff a little bit. So my point of I just think Caleb Williams is so overowned. If you want to play Caleb Williams, you're going to have to play a shit ton to get overweight, right? He's going to be 30%, right? Probably at the quarterback position this week. I mean, it's only 3 games. And I don't want to have to play 50% Caleb Williams in my lineup, Nothing would be worse than, getting to Thanksgiving and then being absolutely dusted because Caleb Williams was miserable and half my lineups are just done. Sure, it'd be fun if he goes off and you're printing too, but I see it as there's other or other pivots that you can make at lower ownership. And I'd rather try and get overweight on Lock and Cooper Rush a little bit more. And I think that's perfectly fine. Goff is my favorite quarterback of the day, and he's actually the guy that I like the most. But my point is, I just think you can take shots on these quarterbacks, kind of like you guys said. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. Let's get to the last and final game of the slate. And if you guys could, please hit that subscribe to the channel to see when we all go live here, talking college football, NFL this weekend. We'll have all the content for you guys. All right, Packers and Dolphins. I'm not in love with the Dolphins today, overall. I mean, Jalen Waddle did win me some money last week. DC, you were over the Dolphins last week. I'm sure you'll have some good takes on how to attack them. I'm trying to figure out what to do with Waddle again. Tyreek Hill is cheap at 6.9K. The Packers, they have Jordan Love. I like Jordan Love a lot today. I feel like I could play him naked and be perfectly fine and not feel like I have to load up on a ton of receivers. You could take a shot on one or the other with Romeo Doubs being out, but I feel like a Jordan Love naked team could even get there, and that could work on this slate with there being so many kind of good receiver options, like DC has kind of talked about, like Snyder's discussed with how these receivers are. So I like Jordan Love because I feel like I can play him a lot of different ways, and it just kind of works out. I like him way more than Tua. You could easily do the Tua doubles. I know a lot of people will be on a chain, so if everyone's on a chain and you want to do Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, it's not a bad route to go. And then you got Jonnu Smith, who he's going to be between I'd say 35 and 45% owned, which he's kind of another guy. Caleb, Rico, and Jonnu, they're going to be clear chalk options, and they're guys I just want to be way lower on. I'm not saying I'm going to fade them completely, but I think being lower on them is the smart approach with my lineup. So he is another guy that I'm definitely going to be a little bit lower on here on this slate. And I think Tucker Kraft's a really good pivot on the Packers that you could take some stabs on. I mean, this Dolphins defense has been pretty good this year. I'm curious if they can step up to the challenge. I mean, I know they've struggled in the cold overall. That's a factor that I'm wondering if it will reflect ownership, because people haven't seen Tua get the job done in cold weather games. And I'm curious if it kind of steams the ownership down as we kind of get closer and closer. Snyder, what's some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think this game, I think there's a couple injuries in this game that are kind of big on the Miami defensive side. Kyle Fuller went out of the game last week. I think we're going to see Jalen Ramsey kind of more so playing the one side of the field and kind of guarding more so like Watson, Wicks, those two guys. And then Anthony Walker is out for them as well. I think that's a big loss for them. I mean, he's the captain, kind of the signal caller there, kind of just the enforcer of the middle. He really shears up those run gaps. The last 3 games, he's had 29 tackles, just kind of the guy in the middle of the field that kind of runs that whole defense. And has been one of their best run stoppers as well. So with him being out, I think that frees up Josh Jacobs and then Jaden Reed as well. I like Jaden Reed quite a bit on this slate. He's averaging 4.8 adjusted yards per route run out of the slot, which is well above the league average. And then I think the middle of the field is going to be more open. So I'm going to be very high on Jaden Reed here in this spot. And then I like the call you had with Tucker Kraft there, 3,700 the tight end spot. He's had a red zone target in 7 of the last 8 games. He had a touchdown last week. So Love's looking for him in the red zone there. So that's something really good. A pivot off of Jonnu Smith, who's going to be the chalk. I have been playing Jonnu the last couple of weeks. I mentioned him on the Millie show a couple weeks ago, and then last week he was a good pairing partner with the Tua stacks there. I'm going to be higher on the field than I think on Josh Jacobs. I've just been playing Josh Jacobs, just been an absolute workhorse there, 7K. I think he kind of comes in lower owned than like a Chain and Gibbs and some of those guys, but he's been putting up 20-plus points in 4 of the last 5 games. Last week he had 3 touchdowns. He scored 6 touchdowns in the last 4 games, had 3 last week, 1 the game before. I think he's a pretty high candidate to put up 20-plus points again on this slate and be that late-night hammer that you need. So I like Josh Jacobs quite a bit. Emmanuel Wilson's seen some carries. I don't know. I think he's too thin. That'd be like a guy you could put in that $5 milli maker or something like that. Pretty thin. He did find the end zone a few weeks back. He's going to play probably 13 to 15 snaps once again. But I think that's too thin for like anything outside of the $5 milli. And then Jordan Love is really close for me between Love and Goff, but I think I'm going to lean Love on my main side, on my main team and such. I think this Miami defense will be more attackable without Walker and Fuller there. And Love's shown some upside a few times this year, but I just like the late night hammer there, 6,300. It's pretty good price tag there. A Chain, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to fall on him. I think I may just try and field him. I mean, he's got the upside to take some of those dump offs to the house and such. I think you need some of him for sure in your file this week, but I'm really high on Jaden Reed and then Jaden Reed and Josh Jacobs for the most part. I like that Tucker Kraft call you had there. I'm going to definitely bump him up some as well. And then the Packers defense is probably one of my top. I think it will end up being my top defense on the slate. They've been disruptive. They've been scoring pretty good points. I mean, they've hit double-digit points 5 times this year, I think. And then you got the Miami factor in the cold. You got just a franchise record, like the last 20 years, 27 games, sub 40-degree weather. They're 8-19 and 1-10 their last 11. And then once the temperature drops below 32 as a franchise, they're even worse. So I definitely like Green Bay at home in those kind of conditions on defense.
Yeah, the Tucker Kraft stuff too. Imagine just playing Jordan Love with Tucker Kraft and not guessing on the receivers instead. That kind of sounds fun. And again, that's like a unique build right then and there. You know, there's definitely ways to kind of build it out and make it different. Also, DC, if you remember back in the day, I used to do a real estate gig. Our guy David St. Real Estate's back in the chat. So I don't know if I have to get the real estate thing back and get my tie back out. But he says Tua is garbage in the cold. Look at the stats. So do you believe with our second favorite real estate guy, David here?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, last week, people who watched the show, I know I got a lot of DMs and messages from people who had some pretty good days with the Tua doubles last week. So yeah, congrats to all those people. My biggest argument for Tua last week was just that this offense is back. They need the pieces to be able to function, right? And they just haven't had very many games, or they hadn't had very many games coming into these last couple where they had all of Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Jonnu, and Achane all healthy and playing good football. And now we've seen it a couple weeks in a row. And, Tua, he's if you look at like the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's completing 76% of his passes, 8 yards a pop. I know he's got to go on the road here, but this is one of those situations where I'd rather lean, and I don't always do this, but I'd rather lean on what the market, the betting market, the totals are saying. And they're not all that worried about Tua going on the road here. A healthy total for Miami. This total has not come down much, if at all, throughout the week. It's going to be, 30 degrees and kind of light winds in Green Bay. I mean, 30 degrees is that's not cold. You know what I mean? You can go out there and play. You're not freezing your ass off. You don't need gloves on your hands.
DC, I will say, just so you know, I know you're not blocked anymore, so you can read this on your own, but a meteorologist in the industry does say the wind chill or temps will feel like they're in the teens. So I don't know if that changes your opinion, but there will be some wind to kind of cause a little ruckus.
It's a concern, right? I mean, the stats that Snyder brought up, it's a warm weather team going on the road. I get it. I will say the first thing that Tua said when he was interviewed post-game after the monster game last week was that he's ready to go break some narratives, right? And the narrative he's talking about is that he can't play in the cold. Now, is it possible he struggles here? Green Bay does have a decent defense. I think that's possible. But I'm going to lean on kind of the take that I had last week, that when this offense, when they get their pieces back together, they are very, very difficult to cover. Tyreek Hill, I know he's struggled. He's still one of, if not the fastest guys in the league. I went on a 5-minute rant about how good of a play Jalen Waddle was last week, asking, tell me what's wrong with him. If you can't tell me what's wrong with him, he has to be a good play. That was my whole point last week, and he proved there's nothing wrong with Jalen Waddle. He's a massive talent who knows how to get open. Jonnu Smith, explosive tight end, who's out there every snap getting targeted, and we know what Devin Achane can do with the ball in his hands as well. So I see an explosive offense for Miami. I see a team who has gotten it together, both coaching-wise. They've got their quarterback back. I think Tyreek Hill is due for a big game. We don't like to use that term due, but I think it's true with Tyreek Hill, especially now with what Waddle did. You got to, and Waddle and Jonnu, you got to focus on those guys as well as a defense. So I do like Miami. I'll be back on the Tua train. Like last week, I like double stacking Tua. He has legit no rushing upside. I mean, I don't even know how you rush for negative yards in the NFL when they don't count sacks like they do for college football for negative. I guess kneel downs probably is what it was with Tua. Negative 2 yards. He just doesn't run at all. Obviously the concussions and the worries with that play a role. But I like Tua. I think I'll be mixing and matching between Achane, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Jonnu Smith. Those are the 4 guys. I don't think you want anybody else from Miami. Mostert is completely dusted at this point. I think he's 32 years old. He's rushed for a total of 3 yards in the last 3 games, despite being healthy. So yeah, I'm back in on Miami. And then Green Bay, I mean, Mangoni mentioned playing Love naked. I think that's kind of crazy just because of the loss of Romeo Doubs, right? The problem with Green Bay is you don't know where the ball is going to go. You take him out of the equation. Now we do know who's going to be on the field. It's going to be Reed, Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and then a little bit of, looks like Bo Melton as well. I don't think I'll get to Melton or Heath, but Wicks, Watson, and Reed, are all much closer to full-time players with the injury to Romeo Doubs, who was by far their leader, in snap share and routes throughout the season and has been that way for the last couple of years. So you take him off the field, the routes and the target tree and the targets become much more condensed between Reed, Watson, Wicks. They don't really throw to Jacobs all that much. And then, yeah, I'm with you guys. Tucker Kraft, I think, gets a nice bump as well. So I think we could potentially see a shootout here. I don't have the same conviction nearly that I did on Tua and the Dolphins as I did last week. I'm still going to be over the field, though, on this Miami team. And I think there's a decent chance that this team really has figured it out and keeps it rolling despite the cold and a little bit of wind in Green Bay tonight.
Yeah, so DC, I actually looked. I decided, based on the love comment, to see how many no quarterback stacks do I have, right? I ran 82 teams, some single entry, some MME stuff. And on those teams, I currently have no naked quarterback plays. So I guess Saberson.
I think that's smart. I will have 0 naked quarterback plays this slate as well.
So I retract my statement. I retract what I said. I do. The more we talked about it, I know I talked a little bit about maybe liking some of the values and Cooper Rush and Locke a little bit. Like I said, I want to get under on the Caleb Williams stuff, and probably the smartest way for me to do it is just play Tua, play Love, play Jared Goff, load up on the spend up quarterbacks to kind of flip the build a little bit. I
think quarterback is wide open. I think all 6 guys have a path to the optimal on this slate.
Same, and I just think it's way too many people are on the Caleb Williams train. Way too many people are on that, where I just want to find the way to get different. And flipping that build a little bit and spending up for Goff, Love, and Tua just sounds like a way better idea to me. And hey, gives me a little bit of a better late night sweat as well. So that's good. I'll be live all day basically then. So I do like that idea a lot. And of course, I do think Tyreek and Waddle, they're getting overlooked today. If you ask people who are your favorite receivers, they like the Bears receivers in that 5K range. So no one's playing Waddle like they should, right? They like CeeDee Lamb more. They want to spend at running back. Tyreek is getting more lost in the shuffle, in my opinion, here on this slate. And by the way, this is another thing. Sometimes it's fun to see what everyone's saying in the industry. Everyone in the chat, including our second favorite real estate guy, David, are saying Tua sucks in the cold. Tua sucks in the cold. It's all I keep seeing, right? And I don't know, DC, you're nodding your head. You agree, when everyone's on the same narrative and you see people talking about it, the ownership comes in way less than we realize, right? When we flip the cards over and we're hey, here's the ownership, I think you're going to see the Dolphins a lot lower owned, especially with everyone on.
It is objectively true that Tua has indeed sucked in the cold, right? So I get, people saying that, they are correct. But we don't get fantasy points for past games, or lack of fantasy points in this case. Got to go play the game on the field, and I'll go against the narrative. Tua himself, he's aware of it. Dolphins are aware of it. They're playing good football. I think they put that narrative to bed for at least one game today.
Gabriel gets it. Gabriel was definitely at the gym with Snyder this morning. It's NFL any given Sunday. This dude's a grind.
Keep hammering, Gabriel.
Yeah. I did not get to the gym today. My gym was closed. Snyder, did you get to the gym today? I am curious.
No, not today.
No, you didn't get there at 6 a.m.? Oh, Snyder, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in you. But that kind of wraps up the slate. It's a great slate, in my opinion, for Thanksgiving. We've had some really bad Thanksgiving slates. For me, one thing I'm definitely keying in on, I'm keying on some key fades. If they told me, not fades, guys I'm just going to be lower on, I should say. I just think there's guys that are way too high owned on this slate, and the field is just way overweight on some guys that makes no sense to me. Snyder, what are some of the key things you're looking at on this slate? And then we'll get the plays of the day after that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of excited for the strategy part of it, with the late swap, like I said, with our partners over at SaberSim. They're going to be updating the sims at the completion or before all these games start. So I think there's a big edge in getting to your computer before 20 minutes before the next game started and rerunning the contest sims and seeing what's all going on there. If you're 150, 20 maxes, you can even use it for 3 maxes and such. But all the showdown slates, it's going to be massive action today. Can't wait to get into this. But, yeah, okay, head on over and use that. We got a promo code for today, too. Giblets44, 44% off. Get in there, get your week, get your month. pass, and then jump on over to Saber and add that on as well.
Yeah, Snyder, you are just crushing it. I forgot the Giblets 44 code. I mean, I am not pitching a good game here, so thank you for that. The Soldier's always getting the job done. But there was one thing I did want to say in the chat. Oh, Dontavian Wicks. I'll just say this. Dontavian Wicks, I think, is getting over-owned. Mix in some Bo Melton today. I do think mixing in Bo Melton, if you're looking for like cheap, shitty wide receivers to get creative with, Bo Melton and Jalen Hyatt feel like the cheap ones that I'm going to kind of get creative with for sure. DC, what are some of your key points after talking through the show? What are some of the key things you like on this slate? I guess the TLDR for the as the kids say.
I'm going to be very high on Goff in the passing game, and then Tua, and then Drew Lock, I think, is going to be my third highest down. So those three quarterbacks, playing a bunch of lineups. Honestly, I'll probably have exposure to all six quarterbacks, but those three, I think, will be my highest. Listen, easy for Snyder. You know, he's been up since like 3:30 in the morning. He doesn't need sleep. He apparently doesn't believe in sleep. I can't relate. I'm on the complete other end of the spectrum on that one. But yeah, he's ready for the ad reads with been preparing all morning. So good stuff there. Play of the day for me. Did have Mr. Waddle last week. We'll go with another. Looks like, I don't really understand why, but low-owned wide receiver Jameson Williams. Our friends at Sabre have him projected between 5 and 10% ownership today. I don't know if that will be true. I hope it is, because I will be way over the field on that number. Think Williams has as much upside as anybody. We know the speed, the ability to get deep. I love that he's in a dome. And, as long as he doesn't get suspended for one of the 17 things he's been suspended for, should be good to go here. So Jameson Williams, my play of the day today.
I love the Jameson Williams call. He was a candidate for me. Also, Drew Lock is confirmed. I've seen a lot of people ask in the chat, but yes, he is confirmed. He's starting quarterback. Also, again, Giblets 44 right down there. 44% off. Sign up. Also, we're giving away, this is another thing. We're giving away $1,000 to a member that is of Run Pure Sports. So if you sign up, you'll be part of that as well. Also, hit that like for us, subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate it. And we got tons of college football content. If you're a football guy, if you're a sports guy, right? It's in the name, Run Pure Sports. This is the place for you. Snyder, I don't think you're taking my play, but we'll have to see. Who do you got? Who is your play of the day?
Yeah, my play of the day is going to be contrarian for sure. I'm going to flip the running backs in that Dallas game. I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy to outscore Rico Dowdle in that game. So I'm going to be higher on Tracy than Rico. So Tyrone Tracy is my play of the day.
All right, we got Tyrone Tracy. It is. I like it. Alexander asks, any word on Cooks? I agree with what Mike says. Cooks will play probably unknown snap share, right? Like, who knows what he's going to do? So, you can do whatever you want with that. For me, play of the day. It's plain and simple. I think tight end's a really good spot to get different. Jonnu Smith is fine. Again, he's been great this year, but I want to look for some other plays that I can mix and match. And like I said, I can play double tight end. I think double tight end is a great way to get unique. And I think it's not a bad slate for it. If you're fading the Rico Dowdle chalk or getting lower on it, I need value somewhere. And maybe I'll do that with my flex spot with a tight end. And it could be with Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft for the Green Bay Packers, I think he's a really good play. What I should have done was I should have got my Cheesehead or my Packers jersey on for this game. That's what I should have done for the play of the day. But Tucker Kraft's my guy. I think it's a really good spot. Like DC said, we are missing Romeo Doubs. It helps open up the opportunities for more plays on the Packers to be able to get the job done. Gives them a little bit more security. So Tucker Kraft will be my play of the day. DC, give me your final thoughts. We got to get to an hour. We're 30 seconds away, so I'm stalling so our guy, Large Anthony, doesn't get mad at us. But give me the final thoughts.
Yeah, really, really fun slate. Happy to have all you guys joining us here on Thanksgiving. Looking forward to the football. I think it's going to be a good day for RPS. Like I said, Jameson Williams, my personal play of the day. I do think it's a good day if you're playing a lot of teams on the 3-game slate to mix it around quite a bit. I'm, a fan of taking big stands and just rolling with it and living with the results. Today is one where I will be mixing it up a little bit. And I think just smart roster construction, right? getting a little bit of piece, willing to swap, looking at what the leaders have, giving yourself outs to try to get first place, all that stuff. Really important when you got 3 games with the staggered start times.
Yeah, you can. And also another thing you could go on SaberSim. You could do the swaps and then you could look at it and go, I don't like that, right? Like I did that the other day with my team. When I was looking, I said, let me at least do the work and do the swap and see if it changes to something new. And I looked and I was like, no, it's nothing new. It's still this team. This is still the best setup and we're going to roll with it. And it ended up getting the job done. Also, DC, what's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? If you had to pick one, what is the go-to dish you'd have?
Well, I've got the house to myself today, so no complaints there. But I will be making a ribeye steak, so that would be my favorite Thanksgiving dish today.
I am jealous. I was gonna stay and just be by myself, but I got an invite from one of my best friends, so I haven't seen him in a while. So I'm making a little bit of a trip, but that's okay. I'll be listening to some of the game. I think the Lions game on the radio or whatever on my phone. So.
You know what the worst thing in the world is? Sitting around the Thanksgiving table making small chat while there's football on TV. So I'm happy to be out to my own devices today.
I'm with you, but this will be a small one and it's a football family, so we'll all be watching. So it's a good setup. So I'm happy about that. Snyder, favorite Thanksgiving dish?
I'm gonna go contrarian. I'm gonna go with some turkey. I'm gonna go with just get the protein in.
And Snyder probably like eats it dry, like while he right after or before he hits the gym, like he wants that dry.
Overcooked by like 15 degrees, something like that.
Yeah, he doesn't even heat it up. He just pulls it out of the fridge the next day and
rip it off.
Yeah, rips it off like a man. That's Snyder for you. Mine is the stuffing. I can't help it. Stuffing is the best. Mix it with sausage and all the other good stuff, and no cranberries. Though. I don't want the cranberries. Some people do that. Not for me. All right. Well, we made it over an hour. Anthony can't be mad. I doubt he's watching, but if you are, Anthony, we made it. 3 games, hour long, and PvP said fade the small talk for sure. Yes, we will fade the small talk. We'll stop talking to you with the small talk, and we will get on out of here. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the show. For me, Mangone, Snyder, and DC, and of course, the Snyder Soldiers and the Giblets 44 promo code. We will see you guys later.